Fearless and truthful.
Provocative and controversial.
We say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense.
Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Thought-provoking, heartfelt and passionate. Hello and welcome to The Pledge. Now, a London bookshop was embroiled in a very British scandal this week after a practical joker decided to improve its copies of David Cameron's autobiography for the record, revamping the cover with embellished reviews, such as a very great book, so great, no, it's a great book, all the words, all the pages. That was from President Trump, terrible impersonation. Anyway, and making a minor tweak to the blurb on the back. Quotes written by a tired man with a face like a satellite dish, made entirely of ham. Now, it turns out our panel are a literary lot who've been beavering away over the years, penning their own bestsellers. I couldn't wait to make mischief by adding some finishing touches to these treasured page-turners, but it turned out there was no need. They're comedy gold already. So, Greg's inside story is a pacey romp, according to The Observer. Oh. According to Nick Ferrari...
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that?
I remember that.
It's adorned by glowing praise from Carol Thatcher that, quote, Nick is exquisite fun to be with early in the morning.
Oh,
Take your book.
Yes, she was never meant to reveal.
Michelle Dubry's is, quote, anything possible, which promises a journey, quote, from the checkout to the apprentice and beyond.
Look at the hair.
The hair's good.
What was I thinking?
Now, don't think you've got away with it, Carol, and not that easily. We've unearthed a not at all tampered with version of your masterpiece, Turn Back Time, on Brexit, the highs and lows of a Ramona in modern-day Britain. The struggle is real. Carol, for you. Coming up, Greg offers some advice to Harry and Meghan. Michelle argues there isn't a time limit on justice. I'm asking, what's wrong with a good old-fashioned three-piece suit? And Femi's all fired up. But first, Carol.
OK, it takes a special kind of stupidity to snatch disaster from triumph. But our dithering politicians did it again this week. Finally, they said yes to a Brexit deal and then delayed it. This house of fools isn't fit for purpose, and its refusal to do its political, constitutional and moral duty has resulted in a 3-year stalemate, reducing this once great country to a global joke. Our Remainer Parliament has repeatedly betrayed voters and democracy, and its handling of Brexit is the greatest political embarrassment of modern times. It's done everything in its power to wreck a deal, a no deal, and an election, all of which were mandated by the people. And even though they have no mandate for a second referendum or cancelling Brexit, they're amending their way to it. Which is why when Brexit is done, there must be a committee of inquiry into how our elected representatives turned Brexit into a national humiliation. This Parliament is rotten. We need an election right now, not just to clear out the dross, but to restore faith in a political system that is hideously broken.
Now, Carol, you and I have been discussing this for about 3.5 years, if I remember right. We've never agreed on anything.
No.
I'm just surprised that you're quite so vitriolic today, because you're nearly winning.
Nearly winning's not good enough after 3 years.
No, but you're nearly winning. I mean, if the Prime Minister had never said he was going to die in a ditch if he didn't get a deal by the end of October, actually, there would now be 3 weeks to examine the bill and you'd be all right.
But do you not think that, in the eyes of the world, we have lost face and credibility because of our Parliament at a time when we needed it most?
No, we've lost face and credibility because we're split. As a country, we're completely split. The people are split, the government is split, the opposition is split, we are split. And that's why they can't get anything through. But he did get the deal through this week. And I've no doubt it'll get amended as it goes through, but actually it does need proper scrutiny.
But they're still playing games, and the whole point...
No, it's not a game, it's proper scrutiny.
But no, it's not proper scrutiny, because when Theresa May's deal went through, this deal is 112, 115 pages. The last deal was 599 pages, and I remember clearly Remainer politicians talking about it within 24 hours of being given it. So they felt across enough that to say it was terrible and rubbish and should never get through. So 112 pages isn't such a big ask to read in a couple of days, I don't think.
I think you're both right. I don't think you're right with a committee of inquiry. Once we've got done, let's move on. Greg, you say you'd be all right if we'd had another couple of weeks or whatever. Why? Why isn't 3 days enough? We have paid these politicians a minimum of £77,000 each per annum for 3.5 years. Many of them get a lot more, and now we're asking them to put in a double shift. Businessmen and women, when they see an opportunity, they work through the night with a team of lawyers and they buy a company, or they save their... What needs to be discussed, Greg, that hasn't been... What do you possibly need to know?
They've got to go through the actual words, they've got to go through the bill and say, right, fine, and that will take time, and there will be scrutiny, and some of it will be improved, some will be changed. But we do it on every other piece of legislation.
No, we don't. Ben Act, sorry.
No, they can do that in a day.
Been accused of not using due process in that.
Femi.
Look, the only reason why we're in this mess is because of the idea of respecting the will of the majority, the 52%. So the only question is, do the 52% support the deal that Boris Johnson's just negotiated? The answer is no. Nigel Farage, the head of the...
How do you know? Yes, exactly. How do you know?
Nigel Farage, the head of the unofficial Leave campaign, called it the second worst deal in history.
But he's not...
You're now quoting Nigel Farage.
So he's not the 52%.
That's the point. That's the point. That is the point.
Let's hear him.
Sammy Wilson, a major figure within the DUP, the Unionists of Northern Ireland, said that they will not accept it because it goes against the fundamental principles of unionism.
Let me just say one thing here, and then I'll let you carry on. But Lord Trimble, who was a unionist hero, said this deal is completely within the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement, and the DUP does not speak for every unionist.
Femi. The deal that Boris Johnson's just signed says that Northern Ireland follows the regulations of the EU, but is unable to influence them at all because it will no longer have representation in Brussels. So you've got a significant spokespeople for the Brexit cause saying this is not the will of the people.
No. You've voted two people.
Yeah.
That's all.
One of them's the head of the actual Brexit party.
And one of the... Yes, and what...
So you're now relying on Nigel Farage to make your argument. You've blown out the water.
Sir, that is the precise point.
Call me Nick.
If you've got a significant figure within the Leave voting population who are saying this does not represent what we voted for, you cannot call it the will of the people. This is kind of like...
What do you think should happen before I give my view on this? What do you want to happen next?
Oh, we all know.
If there is no referendum on that deal, then that means that Brexit essentially becomes like signing a contract and letting the other side of that contract write the terms 3 years later and then tell you, you already signed.
What do you want to happen next?
Referendum on Boris Johnson's deal.
With what are the options?
We either leave on the terms Boris Johnson has negotiated or we stay in the European Union.
A second referendum is not mandated. Do you not understand that?
I think we need to be very careful. I am a Brexiteer, as most people will now know. But we're throwing around phrases now, willy-nilly. Like, we've lost trust, we've lost faith, House of Fools, and we are so divided. We saw it in Commons, I think it was yesterday, the word traitor being thrown across the Commons floor. And I really do feel that we need to proceed with caution in terms of language used, in terms of who we're listening to and how they are presenting their arguments, because to me, there are so many personal agendas at play now from all aspects, from both sides, and so many people, you're saying, you know, the 52%, they don't want this deal. That's not the case. I think what's happening, there is a furthering of agendas in all quarters now, and I actually think that the Brexit Party, they really need to proceed with caution, because hopefully what's going to happen next, or predictably what's going to happen next, will be some form of general election. And what will happen, the Brexit Party are at risk of actually splitting the Brexit vote, which will, of course, then lead to a Labour government.
Can I ask you about this question? I want to come in on that. You said you were talking about the use of the word traitors. Do you not think, you know, we can't become all PC about the word traitors. Do you not think it's traitorous that some of our politicians and MPs have actually travelled to Europe, to France and to the EU to talk to EU bosses about how best to wreck Brexit? Brexit. You don't think that's treacherous?
Well, what I think it is, I think it's people. We have a Remain Parliament in a predominantly Leave country, so there is significant contradictions and conflicts there. So I understand that if someone is a pure out-and-out Remainer, they're going to fight for their cause, and I don't like it because it's not the cause on the side of the argument that I'm on, but I understand it. To your point, I believe it's fundamentally wrong that you would have a second referendum with Remain on the ballot paper without having implemented the first referendum.
We have to deal with that as a concept. I've just shown that the Brexit voting population is split on what they want. Polls have been done showing that 69%, Leave means Leave. Nigel Farage's former organisation says that 69% of Leave voters want no deal, whereas 15% would rather delay Brexit to avoid no deal, which means they want fundamentally incompatible things. So to then claim that Brexit...
What's got to do with Remain being on a ballot paper?
Okay, yeah.
That's a second referendum.
So here's the point. If you have a referendum between Leave options, you're saying, let's find out what the first choice of a majority of 52% is. A majority of 52% is not a majority.
Right, can I just say, if you're going to use polls
maths
to qualify your argument, the biggest poll that has been done on Brexit was done by Comrades 2 weeks ago, 26,000 people, and of them, 54% said the result of the referendum had to be honoured.
Let's stop quoting percentages.
No, but he can't use them to qualify his argument.
You said, you said we're in this mess because we respected the majority. How would you have elections? The minority wins?
You're not understanding the point.
No, I understand what you're saying. No,
it was a complete sentence. It was a complete sentence.
We're in this mess because we respect... I'm fascinated
that wasn't the full sentence, though, was it? That wasn't the full sentence, though, was it? We're in this mess because we're trying to respect the majority, but the majority want incompatible things.
Would you agree, Greg? Would you do it again?
Let's hear from Greg. This is really important.
Let's hear from Greg. Greg, would you want to do it all again?
I wouldn't mind a people's vote. I think much more likely is we're going to get an election. Yeah, that's right. And I think an election will be bizarre because... everything you look at says if the Brexit party stand and take enough votes from the Tories, which I think they will, you get this very strange... And I don't think the Labour Party will win, as you do. I don't think they'll...
I think in Leave voting in northern places they would, if Brexit parties split the vote.
But some of those constituencies are such strong Labour seats that you can take off 10,000 votes and they'll still win. Well, no, I think you'll end up with another hung parliament. I think it'll be all over the place. And I'm not sure it'll solve the issue, but I think that's where we'll go. I think either later this year or early next year we will have a general election.
Can we just look at what Mervyn King is saying about our Parliament, what he thinks? He's the former boss of the Bank of England.
Well, it would be really nice to have to be able to stop talking about it. I think everyone is completely fed up with what's gone on. You can't have a Parliament that can do only one thing, which is to vote against every conceivable alternative. I've said before, we need a new Parliament, and I think we need an election where it's clear which people believe in Remain and which people believe in leaving. Parliament's brought this on itself. And frankly, the sooner we can get rid of this, the better.
OK, I mean, he's basically saying it's not fit for purpose. And I suppose what Boris has done in his rush with the October 31st deadline, he's actually made Remainers come out of the closet pretending that this is all about democracy. And actually, they just do not want to leave. It's as simple as that.